University of Wisconsin campus in Mequon. It is day one coverage of the 2024 NCATA Division III tournament. Our first quarterfinal features the Texas Lutheran University Bulldogs against the East Texas Baptist University Tigers. Welcome to our coverage via the Falcon Athletic Network. My name is Matt Menzel. Being joined by Jesse Alexander, an alum for Concordia Acrobatics and Tumbling. And Jesse, an exciting day and what an opportunity for these athletes to compete in this national event and here inside the John Book Fieldhouse.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be a great matchup today. I can't wait to see what these ladies have been working on.
And we'll see in this first quarterfinal, it's a 4 or 5 seeded matchup. A couple of teams that know each other awfully well. They've faced each other already a couple of times here this season, with each team winning once, as Texas Lutheran knocked off East Texas Baptist back on the 16th of March. But then East Texas Baptist ended up coming through and knocking off Texas Lutheran on the 10th of February. When you faced a team that you were familiar with, was there a comfort level, or did you prefer to face somebody you weren't maybe familiar with?
I always preferred going against someone that you've been against before. You know what they're going to put on the floor. You kind of know where to hit them. And especially with two teams like this where they've gone neck and neck the whole season. You know, we have one win going to each. I'm excited to see what they're going to put out today.
We get things started with Texas Lutheran. Compulsory and the Acro Heat with the start value of 10. A younger group of athletes out there for Texas Lutheran. Number of freshmen. There were 5 freshmen competing on the mat in the Acro Heat for compulsory. And not a bad start there for Texas Lutheran.
No, not at all. I think their timing was really impeccable. I saw some great stability going through the bases all the way through the tops. That's going to be a really high score out there.
I'm curious to see, and you look at the first two get-togethers, the first couple of meets between these two schools this season. When you look at some of the final scores, this compulsory event almost dictated the rest of the meet, and in some cases led 8-team to victory. You look when they met back on the 10th of February, and Texas Lutheran, out of 40, scored a 23.50. East Texas Baptist set the tone by scoring 30.45. It would go on and eventually come through with a sizable victory. Move over to March 16th, and it was quite the opposite, whereas Texas Lutheran got off to a great start, set the tone for the day that was, and kind of a slower beginning for the Tigers at East Texas Baptist. So important to really set that tone here in compulsory.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Coach would always drive home to us. You go out there, especially when you're the first team, you get to lead the meet through the entire time that you're here. You want to put your best foot forward. You want to make them nervous. You want to leave no points out there that you could have gone if you did something differently. So I think they did a great job. They put out a solid performance.
About to see 4 seniors come out for East Texas Baptist. The Tigers about to compete in the Acro Heat for compulsory, and you look at the breakdown of the roster, and the Tigers bring back a total of 15 from last year's squad, a team that's been around since 2019. But some experience there with a couple of seniors. You have 4 juniors on this roster to go along with a big sophomore class of 9 under head coach Berkeley McDonald, who was in her first season. And what a quick turnaround it's been for her. She was part of the team for 3 years, from 2019 through 2022. So fresh from competing, essentially, to now becoming the head coach. And kind of neat to see some of these athletes come back and now in a coaching capacity, giving back to the sport.
Yeah, I know. People who are athletes and then turn around and become coaches, I sometimes think have the best insight and can really curate a great team because they know what it's like. They just went through all of it. They know how to hit the skills. They know the ins and outs. And giving all that back to the team, some team members that you might even have a previous relationship with, it's really great to build upon that, and that trust there is already, present. So I think that's a really great strength for this team to have, and I can't wait to see what they do.
From an eligibility standpoint, I mentioned a couple of seniors on this roster. When you look at academically, that's where you get the 4 seniors competing here in this compulsory acro heat. Brianna Brown with Ellie Davis, Zoe Connor and Macy Goff, the aforementioned seniors for Coach McDonald here in this acro heat for compulsory for East Texas Baptist.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it with East Texas Baptist. Gets a little repetitive, but, you've been competing and doing the same event, week after week after week, and hoping to save the best for last here in Mequon, Wisconsin. And a little wobbly up top, but able to make it work.
Yeah, being able to adjust to those wobbles that you have is something that I don't think is talked about enough through this sport. Like, we have a lot of trust with your base and your top, but being able to be thrown a curveball and make it work, that is something I commend these ladies for.
And I'm venturing to guess that trust is not gained overnight. It's over a length of time. Get used to your base if you're at the top, and you got to, trust each other to make it work. And it worked there for East Texas Baptist here in the acro heat. We'll get the scores as they come in, as the judges right now tabulating what they saw and who saw what. But that's always the other big question mark that comes into this is scoring, because different parts, you may get tougher judges, and so what may work, maybe in Texas that got you a higher score, maybe here, maybe a little bit tougher, maybe a little bit more lenient. We'll have to wait and see, but that's also part of the control you can't control, and you can't control that.
Yeah, my coach used to always say that it's not about the best team, it's about the best team that day, because it's always going to change. You don't know what that judge is looking for, what kind of style they prefer. It's really beauty's in the eye of the beholder here, so you never know what you're going to get, but that adds to it of, how do you prepare for a judge that's a little tougher than the rest?
You're looking right now at the Tigers. They come to town with a couple of victories and 6 defeats here in 2024. You look at the breakdown of their schedule and had wins against Texas Lutheran to get the season started back on February 10th. That's another equation. We talk about the head-to-head between these two programs. Typical coach speak. We're not the same team we were at the beginning of the year that we are today, and I'm going to venture to guess East Texas Baptist will tell you that just that, yeah, we won back on February 10th, but we've improved and only gotten better over time. They also have a victory against Talladega College in Alabama, part of a tri-meet that took place back on the 5th of April. Otherwise, they've been challenged by some nationally ranked competition, including Mary Hardin Baylor, who will be the number 1 seeded defending NCATA Division III tournament champions. They get a bye and will be in competition coming up tomorrow. We move on to the Pyramid Heats. Here's Texas Lutheran. The two top for the Bulldogs being Grayson Bunch, one of the veterans on this second-year acrobatics and tumbling roster, also with Mackenzie Holland, the other top for the Bulldogs. Mentioned a lot of freshmen competing, 13 on the roster for Texas Lutheran, a second-year acrobatics and tumbling program. we talk all about adjusting, and whether it be the trust factor with the bases and the tops and vice versa. But even for freshmen coming in, brand new sport, getting used to what acrobatics and tumbling is all about. And I've heard some athletes tell me that it takes well into your sophomore year before you really can grasp the concept of what all is transpiring.
Oh, easily. I like just the format of everything. There's new terminology. You're learning new skills that are similar to what you've done, but you've got to tweak a few things to make it, into an acro skill. It takes a strong athlete to be adjustable and coachable through that learning period. I think that's something we don't get enough credit for in this sport. Everyone who comes to this sport is trying something new, and it takes a great person to take a chance on something like that.
And again, all these athletes with so many different backgrounds, a variety of backgrounds, whether it be competitive cheer, dance, gymnastics, certainly a big background for a lot of these athletes. As we check out East Texas Baptist, moving on to their pyramid heat of compulsory. Jaden Stroman along with Jessica Coleman, the tops for the Tigers. Thoughts on what we saw there?
I think that was really strong. I mean, you could see the bases pushing into each other, those mids keeping that core tight. The tops, we are looking for their legs to be above that 90 degrees. So we want, or 180, depending on how you look at it. So we want them to have that upward angle from their hips, and that's definitely something we saw here. A little bit of movement on the catch, which is something I think the judges will get them for, but I think overall that was a really strong performance.
For both of these teams, you're starting to get in a rhythm now. Is it one of those where, okay, you go out there with the acro heat, maybe some nerves, some butterflies because of the first, event, get things started, getting used to the surrounding, the environment. Now all of a sudden you're starting to really get into this now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think especially for these two teams, I am not sure the last time we have hosted them here. As an athlete myself, I think the last times I remember competing against them, we have gone to them. So this might be a new environment for a lot of these athletes. It takes time to get used to. I mean, no matter where you're at, the mats feel different, the spacing. You normally spot things for before you tumble or tops when you're in the air. You have to find something different to spot as you're going up now. So a little bit of adjustment for each athlete that comes out here.
Move to the toss seat now here in compulsory, and you bring up just to get used to your environment. You have 8 schools. That's how many Division III acrobatics and tumbling programs exist. All 8 schools are here. 7 teams are competing, but Adrian, the one team that's not competing as a team, will be featured, though, and will be here competing in the event finals taking place come Saturday. So Texas Lutheran again with Grayson Bunch along with Mackenzie Holland. Bunch, formerly a member of the Texas Lutheran University cheerleading squad. Her junior year from Georgetown, Texas. And Mackenzie Holland, a transfer from Stevenson, now a sophomore from the state of Texas as well. Good start, though, for both squads, but Texas Lutheran, let's start out here in the first 3 heats.
I would agree.
And we'll see, again, when the compulsory scores come trickling in, if that does, in fact, ring true. For the Bulldogs, in town with a win against East Texas Baptist for their lone victory. Again, that victory taking place on the 16th of March was the first win in the program's young history after an 0-6 inaugural season. Some of the growing pains at times, okay, you're going to maybe struggle out of the gates, but trying to retain that roster as well, and they only brought back 5, so it really is a new-look roster for second-year head coach Cam Bryant. Now she tries to build this program at Texas Lutheran.
Will be East Texas Baptist.
Here's East Texas Baptist. The toss heat for compulsory. Saw Jordan Reeves that time along with Jessica Coleman up top for East Texas Baptist. But how important is an athlete like Naomi Mays? She was on the mat counting and just making sure everybody's in the same mindset, but also the timing is down.
Mm-hmm. There's a cadence to counting that a lot of people kind of struggle with. You have people that you prefer to count for you. They're also like the hype man on the mat for you, just to give you a perspective, give you that feedback of what it looks like, and just to be there to cheer you on. So I really appreciate the counters. They go out there and they help keep everyone, in tune. So definitely not a position that goes overlooked.
I was going to say, it sounds simple. 1, 2, 1. It's not. There's a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah, no kidding. Like, if you are even just a little bit off, it's not going to match with the cadence of the skills that we're doing. So,
you brought up another good point, though. You talked about the energy and when you're counting, also trying to be the hype man, if you will. And energy is so important, trying to keep, regardless of what happens, from one heat to the next, keep the energy level high.
Mm-hmm. One thing about acrobatics and tumbling is that your energy needs to stay high over a long period of time, and we've got all these downtimes in between each heat. It's a great job to have on the mat. We appreciate all the hype mans that go around and, get everyone energized. But if you don't have that energy, it's going to really be hard to push through a whole meet. So that is one of the most important characters to have on your roster.
And you look at an environment like this where maybe not a ton of fans made the trip up from Texas, rightfully so, with the distance. You have to bring your own energy, and you got to bring it.
Mm-hmm. No kidding.
And so right now, Texas Lutheran will try to do just that here with the tumbling heat as we wrap up the compulsory event.
Beautiful.
They seemed in sync.
Yes, I think, especially on that layout timing there, you see it's something the coach is excited about, and rightfully so. No one touched down there. The timing was great. I saw a lot of great sets going up in the air before you complete that rotation. I think that's a performance to be excited about.
Yes, a split second makes all the difference. The judges were watching that split second. If the timing's off, and it didn't seem like those ladies were off by any stretch of the imagination. You see they're looking up right now because they have a video board here, and so during some of this downtime, they replay the heat that just took place, and so they're all examining what just transpired for the Bulldogs in the tumbling heat, but that was pretty solid.
Yeah, I think that was a great performance out there. Definitely, as I said before, something to be excited about, something to be proud of, and something to take that energy, as we were talking about before, and use that in the heats to come.
Now for the Bulldogs, they're coming off a matchup to wrap up their regular season on March 30th against Mary Hardin Baylor. Ended up losing as Mary Hardin Baylor scored 271.750 to 241.600. But when you look at compulsory, kind of a strong showing there, one of the better compulsory events for Texas Lutheran, trying to build off of that momentum. Although they struggle a little bit in the tumbling heat. So looking to bounce back, and it looks like they have done that here on this Thursday morning.
Tumbling is often one of the heats where you will see people struggling. Just it's so hard to transfer where most of these girls are coming from a spring floor. That'll help you a bit to a dead mat is what this is called. Also having the numbers to complete the minimum requirement, which is typically 8 you're supposed to see, no more, no less. But then if you have less, you will get a bit of a deduction. So it's one that you take, your coach has to decide. Do we want to put someone out there that, may not have it all perfect, or do we want to take that deduction at face value? So it's definitely a strategical thing to go with whatever number you do put out there. But I think especially competing against as many teams as I have, the tumbling score is really where it will get you.
Well, you had 7 out there competing for Texas Lutheran. About to see 5 at least declared for East Texas Baptist with Zoe Connor, Ellie Davis, Jaden Stroman, Macy Goff, and Jessica Coleman expected to be the 5 out there competing. And again, 4 of those, at least when you look academically, listed as seniors, with the lone exception being Jessica Coleman, listed as a sophomore from St. Joseph, Michigan. So here are the Tigers. Tumbling heat to wrap up compulsory.
Great landings out there. I think a lot of these girls stuck or nearly stuck each of their skills, and that is impressive.
What I was impressed with, too, is when you talk about, sticking that landing, even if you're a little bit off balance, you find a way to quickly fix it and freeze, if you will, and try to maintain that balance. And I thought they all did a nice job of recovering from maybe a little wobbly landing.
Even if it's a wobble, if your feet are stuck, your feet are stuck, and the judges can't argue with it. So make it look like they're stuck.
You talked about and referenced this downtime. As an athlete, what are you thinking? What are you doing during this downtime? How do you stay, engaged, stay focused?
One thing that I always wanted to focus on is making sure my team is good, maybe checking with the coach, what is the coach wanting to see in these upcoming heats, but keeping the energy up, keeping your body warm, rehydrate, and get ready for what's coming up. So warm up your next skills, maybe throw a few skills that are going to be easier for you to keep your body warm. It's important because otherwise, you could risk yourself of injury or something. So making sure you're ready for what's coming up is greatly important here.
How focused are you on the scoreboard? Does that factor in at all, or do you try to not think about that until you absolutely have to?
It varies for each person. I know me personally, I try not to listen to the scores. I always tried to ignore it as much as I could because at the end of the day, the scores don't matter. I was always focused on going out there and scoring as high as I could, no matter if we just scored, a school record or if we just scored an all-time low. I think you should go out there with a vengeance each time and go for gold.
Well, up next, it's going to be the acro event. What can we expect in the acro event?
So, acro event, one of my favorites. I think we're going to see some great skills from both sides. I know ETBU normally does really well in their pyramid heat, so I'm excited to see what Texas Lutheran does over here for acro. But looking down the road a little bit, I am looking forward to ETBU and their pyramid heat. Sorry.
And that'll take place before our halftime break here in this meet format as we get things started here on day 1 of the 2024, the 3rd annual NCATA Division III tournament to determine a Division III champion. The Concordia University Wisconsin Falcons won the inaugural event from Adrian, Michigan in 2022. The banner is up here inside the John Book Fieldhouse. And last year, Mary Hardin Baylor hosted and won the event. And again, they will be the number 1 seed the way the format plays out. You will have 3 teams that will advance from quarterfinal competition today. The 3 that fall today will meet in a tri-meet to wrap up the competition coming up tomorrow night at 6 p.m. So a tri-meet, get your money's worth. You come here to Mequon, Wisconsin, you stay all 3 days. We'll compete all 3 days and hope to come out with some great memories and certainly lasting memories from the weekend that will be here in Mequon, Wisconsin. And right now, the judges discussing and tabulating the compulsory events. And look at the Texas Lutheran, out of 40, got a
East Texas Baptist,
34.13. Their top score came in the
7.40.
toss heat when they scored a
In the
9.55.
pyramid heat, Texas
East
Lutheran
Texas Baptist, their score is trickling in as well. And
9.450.
out of 40,
East
they
Texas
scored a
Baptist
29.70.
9.275.
Their top heat
In the
was the
toss
toss
heat,
heat at
Texas Lutheran
9.45. Now, according to
9.550.
the
East Texas
spreadsheet we
Baptist
have, and right now some of the scores are
9.450.
being adjusted, it
In
looks
the
like
tumbling
the
heat,
tumbling heat, they really took a
Texas
hit
Lutheran
at
6.875.
3.575.
That, and
East
as I mentioned,
Texas
tumbling is a
Baptist
hard event to hit the
3.575.
score sheet on. It is.
Event
Judges
total,
are very
Texas
technical.
Lutheran
There's little things here and there that
34.125.
are hard
East
to complete a
Texas
skill to
Baptist
perfection. So, especially on a dead mat,
29.700.
it's a tough score to get, but we've all been there, so you take it and you keep going.
Will they get deducted, or did they get deducted based on the fact they had 5 versus the 7
Now it's
competing? Does
time
that
to
come into
begin
play a
the
little bit? How
acro
many
event.
people are out there
The first heat will
competing,
be the
performing?
5
Yes.
element.
8,
Up
as I
first
mentioned
with a
before,
start
is
value
the
of
number the judges are looking for. Any number
9.95,
less will
Texas
be a
Lutheran.
deduction. So starting with 5 does put you behind the starting line a little bit.
So right now, roughly, give or take, about a 5-point lead for Texas Lutheran through the compulsory event. We'll move on to Heat 1, the 5 elements for Acro. And for Texas Lutheran, a start value of 9.95. Man, look at that strength.
That core strength there. As I mentioned before, we want to see the legs above that 180 or 90 level, and her legs were way above. That takes incredible core strength. The hip flexors are working there too, so that was very impressive to see.
I love the energy of Coach Bryant. You can see every time that, she watches her team out there, and if things go well, she's quickly, sprinting right back toward that team area and embracing her athletes. Athlete herself, she competed at Baylor 5 years. How about a 43-2 record with 4 NCATA national championships? She knows a thing or two about competing at a very high level in this sport.
Yeah, to say the least.
My goodness, and again, trying to build this Texas Lutheran program. Not easy to do from the ground up, and doing a great job making strides from year 1 to year number 2 and looking to put together a great showing here at the NCATA Division III tournament. But she was pleased with that 5-element heat. As we get ready for East Texas Baptist, who will come out with a adjusted start value of 9.70. And for the Tigers, we will see Ellie Davis, Jaden Stroman, Zoe Connor, Kylie Davis, along with Sydney Job, competing. Job among a couple of freshmen out there for East Texas Baptist. Do you remember when you were a freshman going out there competing and thinking, what am I doing? What is this all about?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, I remember I was in the 5-element heat 1 for Acro my freshman year, and that was something that I think I was with 2 or 3 other freshmen in that heat as well. We worked hard to get those skills to competable level on the mat, and it's some of the greatest memories I have, going out there for the first time, doing something new and doing it well.
And every athlete will tell you, you cannot, duplicate what a meet day feels like. Obviously, you have practices, you practice for this, but when you go out there, it's a whole other animal.
Yes, indeed.
Off the flip there by Jaden Stroman. And again, you see that strength able to freeze there for a moment. Jaden Stroman, the senior from Atlanta, Texas.
Yeah, and that got the team excited. And as it should, that was a beautiful performance. Lots to be proud of there.
See Stroman jumping into the arms of Meredith Griffin. Think about the quickness, too, okay? You just did one flip, and all of a sudden you're right back on the shoulders of one of your bases and right back up. And, again, trying to maintain your momentum, but your energy level and catch your breath for a second, too.
Yeah, especially with the time limit of 45 seconds to be completing 5, 6, or 7 skills, depending on the heat that you're in. You got to strategize when you're going to get breathing time, if you're going to get breathing time. You know, you've got one skill and then on to the next. So I commend these athletes and for doing this as quickly as they do. It's not easy. So
see the practice over there for Texas Lutheran. For the Bulldogs, when they became a program prior to the 2023 season, they became the 4th acro and tumbling program in the state of Texas, the 7th nationally for Division III schools since Buffalo State has joined. And we'll see the Bengals coming up a little bit later on here in quarterfinal play on this Thursday. Everything's bigger in Texas, and certainly when it comes to acrobatics and tumbling, it's a sport that is growing and growing quickly in the state.
Yes, I commend the teams that are down there. I know they have some great talent, especially with Baylor being so close, Mary Hardin Baylor, these athletes that we are seeing here compete. We've got a lot of great talent going on down there, and I appreciate all of them growing the sport and doing what they do.
Let me ask you this, in being down in Texas last year for this event, what was the feeling, what was the mood over the last couple of years, you know, being here on the Division III national stage? Did it feel different from a typical meet?
It definitely does. There's much more going on. There's more ins and outs to it. I mean, traveling all the way to Texas is quite the trip to be making, and you're out of your element. And then on top of that, you're in a different locker room. You're getting taped in a different place. There's so much adjusting that you need to do when you are not competing on your home turf. But as competing there, it's so fulfilling, honestly. It is incredible to see what your body can do when you're out of your element. And I can't wait to see how these ladies do this year.
Yeah, so far so good as we get this day started with this first quarterfinal between East Texas Baptist and Texas Lutheran. Again, two programs that have seen each other over the years, last couple of years at least. With East Texas Baptist 3-1 all time against the Tigers. So Heat 2, 6th element, start value of 8.30 for Texas Lutheran. Saw the combination there of Mackenzie Holland along with Maddie Mearscheit. Has a cheerleading background, a freshman from Texas. The two tops for the Bulldogs. And then Cassie Gelvin, a base, a sophomore from Mission, Texas. Cheerleading and softball background back at her prep days on the mat, counting and again making sure everybody's in sync, timing down. Your takeaways from the second heat for Acro?
I think these ladies looked great out there. I was really excited to see those press extensions with the pop-off, nice, clean landing there. We also saw a very clean landing off those inversions coming through to a pike and then coming down very nicely there. So I think that's something to be excited about for this coach and for these athletes. Overall, I think that looked great.
I know these athletes right now are watching the video board here and watching the replay of that last heat. And obviously, when you were out there competing, the video board wasn't always here. You sometimes had the phone, and if the coach taped the particular heat, you'd go back and watch it. Were you one that wanted to go back and quickly watch what just happened, or did you want to let it, kind of sink in a little bit?
I always wanted to watch it personally. There were times, of course, when I had to focus somewhere else. But if I had the time and, it was an okay thing to do, I would love to always go and see what I did, how I can improve, maybe, the angles of my wrists or something that I need to work on. So having that feedback immediately and then taking that with you into what you do next, I think is very valuable.
Well, here comes East Texas Baptist. ETBU with Heat 2, 6 element, start value of 9.25. Good recovery there from Emma Levy, number 4 for the Tigers. Jessica Coleman also up top for East Texas Baptist. You can see a little bit of difficulty on that left side as you face the screen. How challenging is that, okay? If things don't go right per se, you can't just stop and just run off the mat. You got to, stay in that frame of mind.
Mm-hmm. This is something that I think comes back to trust, as we were talking about before. Knowing that if something goes wrong, your teammate is going to catch you, and they are there for you. And even if something doesn't go up after that, you're there together. And you do have to be in that frame of mind to at least try and mark through what you're doing. But I think great job to these ladies for having a safe come down there. And then great job to the other group for not letting it affect their performance either, keeping on going and kind of almost ignoring what's going on the other side, because at the end of the day, you got to worry about your own stunt group. So I think there's a whole lot done right that we saw in that performance right there.
And again, got to go through the motions, business as usual. Even if things don't always go the direction you want them to go, you just keep going as though it's business as usual. And I think so much of this sport too, and it's kind of like baseball with when there's a bad pitch, the catcher somehow has to kind of frame the pitch and try to sell it as a strike. I feel like when there's mistakes in a sport like this, you got to do your best to cover it up as best you can. It's not going to be perfect, but you got to minimize what the judges see.
Yeah, you got to sell it any way you can. If you can try to make it look like you didn't bobble or what you did was intentional, that is one of the aspects of this sport where you need to kind of ebb and flow with what's going on to make it look as believable and as good to a judge as you can. So don't let it affect your face. Don't let it affect, your nerves. Do what you can to make it look good.
Boy, that's easier said than done. Especially in an environment
easier.
like this. As we continue with the Acro event, it is event number 2, quarterfinal number 1 between East Texas Baptist and Texas Lutheran to get the 2024 NCATA Division III tournament underway. And again, through one event, 34.125. You see on your screen the score for Texas Lutheran, 29.700 for ETBU. Through the compulsory event, and again, they took a hit in the tumbling heat. That's where Texas Lutheran scored a 6.875. Still had some points deducted out of a possible 10. That's where the struggle was real. But looking to bounce back here in the Acro heat and getting ready for the Acro event, heat number 3, 7 element. And for Texas Lutheran, they will have a start value of 8.65. I still think this would be the toughest part right now is all this downtime. And especially if you're about to go out there and perform your heat, you want to stay engaged and, again, know that you're about to go out there at moment's notice. When the judges are ready, bam, you're out there performing.
Yeah, we've mentioned it before, being adjustable, being able to go with the flow here. These are moments where you want to stay out of your mind and in the moment. You don't want to get too caught up in there. You need to be ready when the judges are ready. Your coach will obviously help you prepare as she senses the time is, rounding the corner. But these are definitely the times of the meet where the energy is the lowest. It's kind of the hardest rut to get out of. But, you've got more meet coming. You've got more downtimes coming. You just have to keep going and push through it.
Well, here is heat number 3 for the Bulldogs, who are coming off that performance against Mary Hardin Baylor, in which they scored a total program record of 241.600 for points. The top being Mackenzie Holland. The base, Nadia Roberts. Looked like a very smooth, clean transfer.
Yes, I agree. That popover was done really nicely, hitting that handstand. No movement up there for 3 seconds, completing that skill, coming on down. I think that was an incredible popover.
We talk about building that trust between base and top, and how about an athlete like Mackenzie Holland, a transfer, as mentioned, from Stevenson. So not only is she transferred from one program to another, but brand new set of teammates. So you just got used to one set of teammates last year to another set this year. Over time, trying to build that trust.
Yeah, it's definitely something that, not every athlete can do. So having a moldable athlete that can go from one environment to the next and can still be, as we just saw, super effective, I think that is a great attribute to have as an athlete.
To wrap up the Acro event, heat number 3, heck of a start value here for East Texas Baptist at 10. They came in with a overall Acro total of 29.05 for a start value. They try to create some separation, or at least in this case, trying to gain ground on Texas Lutheran. You're excited about what's to come after this, the pyramid event, huh?
Yes, I am. That is also one of my favorite events. Just the stability, the strength, and, the camaraderie that you need to have between your teammates there. You see some crazy stuff going on, and it takes a lot of work to get it to be mat ready like it is that you will see today. So I'm very excited for that to be coming up.
See Brianna Brown coming out along with Jessica Coleman. Emily Blaylock sports jersey number 12, a freshman from Marshall, Texas.
Look at that.
Strength there of Brianna Brown. Coleman on top. Talk about pure strength.
Yeah, that skill in particular, that half in to fully extended, I completely understand the amount of strength that takes, and I give a huge round of applause to these athletes for doing that. Heading over into the lib and bringing it down to shoulders, all looked very stable. That pop around to follow was gorgeous. I think all around, this is going to be a score that's going to make a TLU shake.
We talk all about the energy level. We could talk about being mentally tough, how about physically tough and strong. And some of the stuff we see and we'll see throughout these 3 days, eye-opening. And if you haven't seen this sport before, wow. I mean, it's fun to watch. Impressive stuff, and we saw that there with Brianna Brown, along with Emily Blaylock with Jessica Coleman for East Texas Baptist as the scores get ready to come in here for the acro event. Pyramid is up next. We will have the inversion heat up first. And you feel like this is a strength for East Texas Baptist?
Yeah, I've seen ETBU come in with these pyramids, and I think they do a really nice job here. So I'm excited to see what they do this year.
East Texas Baptist is coming off what was a tri-meet from Talladega, Alabama, April 5th, in which they knocked off Talladega College, but then fell against St. Leo. That was their last competition. When you look at the tri-meet scores in the pyramid, at least for ETBU, out of a start value of 29.70, they scored a 27.50, so only 2.20 off their start value, so not bad at all, and a couple of 9s in there in both heats 2 and 3. So we'll see if they can carry that over here, 6 days later. The pyramid heat, well, these teams met during the course of the regular season. In the first meet back on February the 10th, that went the route, the pyramid did, of East Texas Baptist, but then Texas Lutheran, not by a ton, by 1.85, was able to take the pyramid event on the 16th of March. So this has been a competitive event when you look at the two head-to-heads during the course of the regular season.
The scores are in for the acro event.
Scores are going to start trickling in here for the acro event.
9.200.
Texas Lutheran with a 9.20 in heat number 1. 7.73 in heat number 2. And in heat number 3,
East Texas Baptist 4.900.
8.20, so they get 25.13. That's 1.78 off their start value. For East Texas Baptist, 8.55 in heat number 1. You can see the excitement there for the Tigers. Had a 4.90 in heat number 2, but a 9.20 in heat number 3, 22.65, 6.30 off their start value in the acro event. And so the updated scoring through the first two events currently sees Texas Lutheran with 59.250 to East Texas Baptist at 52.350. So almost plus 5 in the compulsory event and nearly plus 3 the scoring in the acro event as we move on to the pyramid. And heat number 1, the inversion for Texas Lutheran, a start value of 9.70. The top being Grayson Bunch. And again, the jubilation on the Texas Lutheran sideline.
Normally in a inversion pyramid or inverted handstands in general, we see a straddle up, but here I saw a tuck up rather than the straddle in the, to get into the handstand. I think that's super impressive, not something you see all the time, so props to that top for choosing that intro.
What's the big difference between the two?
So with the straddle, your legs are going to come around the sides before they meet together at the top. Sometimes they'll even stay a little bit apart, which is still an acceptable body position by the judges. Here we saw her go straight and keep her legs together the whole time and keep them together at the top. So a lot of balance and core strength that takes. So like I said before, a lot of props to that top.
And it worked there for Texas Lutheran. Again, the top being Grayson Bunch. For East Texas Baptist, they will come out with a start value of 9.70. As they try to play comeback here in this first quarterfinal. So right now, if you're on that ETBU sideline, you're not watching the score? Like,
Next
if it
with
was
a
you
star value of
personally,
9.70,
Yeah, correct. I
East
probably
Texas
wouldn't be
Baptist.
paying attention to the score, the start values, or anything. As long as I go out there and do what I need to do, then that's all I'm worried about. Because at the end of the day, the scores don't matter. Not at this point right now. It's not going to change what you're about to go do.
so Coleman there up top for East Texas Baptist. How long are you trying to hold that inversion?
We want to see 3 seconds of no movement. So you get up there, you hold. A lot of times you'll hear that counter, as we were talking about before. They will say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and get back into that cadence that we were speaking to earlier. But yeah, 3 seconds of no movement is what the judges are looking for.
You saw that build up with Brianna Brown, and then eventually Jessica Coleman with the inversion, and was trying to hold it for about a second and a half, 2 seconds maybe. Off that recovery in heat number 1 for the Pyramid.
It is a difficult thing to do. I mean, you've got 3 layers of each person doing their own thing here. So you need to be in sync. And definitely what makes this event so fun to watch, and it's just so challenging to compete. You need the bases to be in sync. You need your mid to have their arms nice and tight by their ears to give that top the stability they need. Even down on the catchers, you need to have that distance needs to be close so you can bring your top in and bring them to a complete stop. Even the people who are tossing up the pyramids, helping them get to the shoulders, that needs to be fluid, and it's a lot of strength to almost just push press a human being from the ground. So there's a whole lot going on in here, and that's why pyramids are just so exciting to watch.
It's fun to watch, too, looking at both sidelines, the different mindsets, if you will. You look over on the Texas Lutheran side, and it seems they're staying loose, kind of loosey-goosey, and I mean that respectfully.
Mm-hmm.
You look on the other side for East Texas Baptist, right now it looks like more strategy, trying to just work on some things, maybe improve some things, and find more stability.
Yeah, there's different ways you can stay warm and stay loose and stay ready. Whatever works for your team works for your team, and, you know, everyone is different. People need different things, so it's great to see both sides of what athletes need here.
So we are ready for what's going to be heat number 2, synchronized here in the Pyramid. The start value for Texas Lutheran will be 9.50, and again, a possible of 10, but the start value at 9.50. That for the Bulldogs.
It's now time
Right
for
now,
Pyramid
Texas
to
Lutheran
complete the synchronized
through a
pyramid.
couple of
Up
events
first
with the
star
lead
value of
here in this
9.50,
quarterfinal.
Texas Lutheran.
You see on your screen by nearly 7 points. Synchronized indeed there for Mackenzie Howland along with Grayson Bunch. Should mention with Bunch, she along with Phoenix Causley represented TLU in the duo tumbling event at the NCATA Division III tournament a year ago. There was not a team representing the Bulldogs, but a couple of individuals there in the event finals. So this is a first opportunity for the Bulldogs as a team to be competing in this event. So a whole new avenue for this second-year program. And again, so far so good here in this quarterfinal. Your assessment on that synchronized heat.
I think there's plenty of great things out there, but one thing that I'm really thinking of in my head is what you mentioned about these ladies that were representing their team at the NCATA D3 Nationals last year. Having a dual athlete like that is incredibly valuable to a team. An athlete that can come out and, put together a great pyramid like we just saw, but then can turn around later in the meet and also be that heavy-hitting tumbler that you need. Tumbling on dead mat is not easy, as we said before. It takes a lot of skill. It takes a lot of effort and strength. So having an athlete that can do both is just so valuable to a team.
Yeah, both Mackenzie Holland along with Grayson Bunch listed as tops, but also tumblers. Start value here for East Texas Baptist, 10. I thought, again, you saw the Tigers maybe a split second off on that one side, but they covered it nicely.
Yeah, it's all about the recovery. It's all about how you sell it. I think they did a great job here. Those ups look solid, so tossing the top up into that dangle position before they pull their legs. Those were greatly in sync. Then coming into their straddle, I think all of that looked very strong. And from my perspective, I think that's going to hit the score sheets really well.
You see she walks away from the tee, and that was head coach Berkeley McDonald, a Jacksonville, Texas native. Also was a member besides the Acrobatics and Tumbling team, a member of the ETBU cheer team once upon a time, and an opportunity for her now to take over this program that dates back to 2019. Their second consecutive year participating in the NCATA Division III tournament. Last year's number 4 seed, as they are this year. They beat Concordia, Wisconsin before they lost to Trine in a semifinal. Lost to Trine by less than a couple of points. And you look at this roster, bringing back 15, so quite a bit of experience. They've been maybe not here in Mequon, Wisconsin, but they've been in this tournament environment with success in the past.
Up first with a start value of 9.60. Texas
Open
Lutheran.
here in heat number 3 for the Pyramid. And Texas Lutheran will come out with a start value of 9.60. Roughly 13 athletes out there for Texas Lutheran for the open pyramid heat. Looking for that level of difficulty. As again, the Bulldogs watch the replay. Oh, timing was pretty good.
I think that was a great effort, a great performance out there for them. Looking at that catch, that nice high catch, stopping the movement, that's going to be something that the judges are looking for, and I think they did a great job there.
Are they watching on that catch, the movement, if it's one of those where it's, what's the word I want to use, if it's more of a...
like a bobble?
Bobble, yeah. I mean, that might be a good way to describe it versus if it's the clean...
Yeah, we... What we used to say is we want saran wrap catches.
Ooh.
I think that even comes from the Baylor coach would say that. They want saran wrap catches. So something that really sucks in the top, stops them nice and high. and has no movement is what we're looking for.
And I thought you got that there.
Yes.
The saran wrap catch, if you will. Here's East Texas Baptist. 10 for their start value. Great job there by the Tigers.
Coming out with a 10.0 start value is not something that's easy to achieve. So seeing them have 2 in this element, that is great.
And we'll see what the judges think as they, again, figure out the scoring in the pyramid event. As we've reached halftime, we still have the toss and tumbling events. And my favorite, the team event, to wrap up this quarterfinal. We'll talk more about the team event as we go along, but man, there's a lot goes into that.
Oh, yes.
That's a year's worth of preparing for, in this case, this particular moment at the NCATA Division III tournament. But again, so far, compulsory and acro events go on the route of Texas Lutheran. We'll see if the pyramid brings the Tigers a little bit closer. Overall, Texas Lutheran came in with a pyramid total start value of 28.80. A little bit higher there for the Tigers at 29.70 with the aforementioned start values at 10 for both heat number 2, heat number 3. Talking about all this downtime, how about halftime? How do you approach halftime?
Halftime is normally where you start preparing for the second half of the meet. So you have certain skills that you only need to worry about after halftime, and I like to save those for after halftime. Before the break that we're about to have is, where you focus your skills on your compulsory event, your acro event, your pyramid event, and that's when you worry about those skills. So here's where you start to see that transition. You'll see ladies start to warm up their tumbling. You're also going to maybe see people warm up some of their tosses, and then even skills that you're going to see in team event. So I think this is where the mind shifts a little bit from first half to second half in terms of skills and requirements that you need to meet.
I feel like, too, that second half, things start to pick up even quicker, and all of a sudden it's like boom, boom, boom.
Mm-hmm.
You get a little bit of build-up, a few more heats here in these first 3 events, but things start to pick up in pacing here in half number 2.
Oh, yeah, I think after halftime it goes so quickly. The first half is always the slowest, then all of a sudden halftime comes and you're like, woo, we got to go.
Kind of waiting to see the pyramid scores before we take a quick break. As we watch this 4-5 seeded quarterfinal between East Texas Baptist and Texas Lutheran to get our day 1 coverage started. Still to come, coming up at 2 o'clock. Will be a quarterfinal between second-seeded Shrine and seventh-seeded Buffalo State, a first-year program. And then coming up, the nightcap at 6 p.m. will be number 3 Concordia, Wisconsin against number 6 Stevenson. And for Falcon fans, maybe a flashback because when they went on to win their NCATA Division III championship in 2022, that journey began with at least in the tournament, a victory against Stevenson.
Yes, it sure did. It was an exciting time and great team to be competing against. A lot of great athletes on and off the mat. They are commendable people in general, just great characters. Definitely a team that I remember fondly.
So again, that will be the quarterfinal coming up at 6 p.m. And as far as this matchup goes, the other thing that comes into play a little bit is the fact that, Mary Hardin Baylor is awaiting. Whoever wins this particular quarterfinal will take on the defending NCATA Division III champs at 10 o'clock tomorrow. And when you look at the latest NCATA national rankings that came out, the latest rankings coming out yesterday, and regardless of division, you have Mary Hardin Baylor ranked number 5 now with Baylor number 1. So the NCATA championship rankings with the top 10, but the top 8 teams in the final rankings will qualify for the 2024 NCATA National Championships from West Virginia coming up at the end of the month. Let's take a commercial break. We'll come back as we await the pyramid event scores to come in. We'll bring those to you when we come back as we continue with this quarterfinal between East Texas Baptist and Texas Lutheran. It's Acrobatics and Tumbling on the Falcon Athletic Network. Back inside the John Book Fieldhouse, the first quarterfinal of the NCATA Division III tournament currently sees Texas Lutheran, number 5 seed, on top of the number 4 seed, East Texas Baptist, and the updated scores with 3 events completed. The overall totals currently see Texas Lutheran up 86.625 to 78.325. In the compulsory event, it was Texas Lutheran with 34.125 to 29.700. In the acro event, it was Texas Lutheran 25.125 to ETBU's 22.650. And in the pyramid event, Texas Lutheran able to score 3 9s. They had 27.375 for their total pyramid score versus 25.975 for East Texas Baptist, who was able to score a couple of 9s, although they scored a 6.950 in the first heat. So at halftime, a lead for Texas Lutheran of nearly 8 to 9 points. We'll see what transpires as we get ready for the second half. Stay tuned. The toss event followed by tumbling and the team event to come as we continue with this quarterfinal. It's the first quarterfinal of the 2024 NCATA Division III tournament on the Falcon Athletic Network. Second half is coming up here inside the John Book Fieldhouse between Texas Lutheran and East Texas Baptist, our first quarterfinal of the 2024 NCATA Division III tournament, being joined by former Falcon acrobatic and tumbling athlete Jesse Alexander. Your takeaways, what did you think of the first half?
I mean, as we were speaking to a little bit before, these teams are neck and neck. They've been neck and neck this whole season. We've got a great matchup going on here. I am extremely proud of both teams, especially with the level of experience and how long each of these programs have been around for. So I'm excited to see how the second half lays out because, as you know, it can change. The lead can be taken by anyone in a blink of an eye with this sport. So,
and you see the graphic indicating a 8+ point lead for Texas Lutheran, looking for their second ever win in the program's 2-year history, and it'd be their second against East Texas Baptist. As we move on to the toss event, the Salto, the 450 Salto, Heat 1, and a start value of 9 here for Texas Lutheran. Been talking about Mackenzie Holland, the top for the Bulldogs. Gotta believe it's somewhat challenging coming off that lengthy break and right back into competition you go.
It's a little jarring, I might say, especially for the top. As a base myself in my years, I know that throwing and catching is a lot of times what tosses end up being. Though a lot of tosses start at the base, the tops are extremely talented to be able to use the power that someone else is giving you and take it and make it the skill that you need it to be. It's a lot more technical than just tumbling on the ground, as the ground is not moving along with you. You also need to pull your feet past where you would normally land, so then you can land on your back in a catching position. So it takes a lot of core strength to pull your toes over your head and through. So definitely one of those technical elements that just adds to the jarring factor of coming back from halftime.
And you have to reset the energy level. All of a sudden, it went from a higher energy level to now you got to build it back up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're getting ready for East Texas Baptist, who will have a start value at 9.30. They have some ground to cover. Last year, the Tigers 3-5. The 3 wins, a program best. They started off at 1-7 their inaugural season back in 2019. There's that saran wrap catch that we talked about earlier.
Yes, for sure. An Arabian that we just saw, that's beautiful skill. And one of the more confusing ones to compete, as you are making a half turn before you complete a front flip. It's easy to get lost in the air there. So definitely got the difficulty there. As you can see in their start value coming out with a 9.3. I think it is respectfully impressive to compete.
When we break down East Texas Baptist this season, they had one of their better performances against East Stroudsburg on the 4th of March. Stroudsburg with a season best there for the Tigers at 227.565. But then even on March 26th against Mary Hardin Baylor, recorded 6 9+ scores, their most in one meet on the season. Most of those came in the pyramid. So again, high expectations of the pyramid. They ended up scoring 2 9s, plus 9s in the pyramid here today. But then even when you look at the compulsory pyramid heat, the toss heat, had a great deal of success against Mary Hardin Baylor, but now trying to pick it up here in the toss, tumbling, and team events to end this quarterfinal strong and come from behind and advance to take on Mary Hardin Baylor coming up on Friday. As we get ready for the second heat of the toss event with the synchronized. And when Texas Lutheran comes back out to compete, they will have a 9.40 for a start value.
Heat 2 of this event is the synchronized toss. Up first with a start value of 9.40, Texas Lutheran.
Mariah Johnson counting. The freshman with a cheerleading background, but also a certified nursing assistant. And you see the synchronized heat for the toss. Well done by the Bulldogs.
Double back full tosses, I think those are something we're seeing relatively new here at the D3 level, something that was competed quite often at D2 and D1. But seeing it come to the D3 level is incredible for this sport. It just shows the growth that we are having here.
Well, you and I were talking before this quarterfinal started. That's the beauty of this sport. It's ever growing. Mm-hmm. And what you saw last year, you may not see this year, or it's been enhanced, or a new element's been added, but it seems like it's a sport that's always growing regardless of what level, what division.
Yeah, and that's the most exciting thing about having a new sport coming to the collegiate level. These athletes are making history day in and day out. As you may be the first one to compete a skill, you may be competing, with alongside someone else who is in their inaugural season. It is incredible that we are always growing, and it makes it all the more exciting to be a part of it.
No question about it. Now year number 3 for this particular event, this meet. Always exciting and growing with new teams. Expected to be maybe a new team in Division 3 come next year as well when this event makes its way out to Buffalo, New York is where it's said to be headed. But for the time being here in Mequon, Wisconsin, day 1 of 3.
Next with a start value of 9.25.
For East Texas Baptist, their start value here in heat number 2, the synchronized toss, 9.25. Well done there by the Tigers.
And much like I said in their previous heat, a front full toss is easy to get lost in. Having that forward motion and completing a full spin, it's a technical skill that it takes quite a bit of time to master. So seeing two of these competed is also really exciting.
I'm always blown away by, again, obviously it's called synchronized, but when you talk about that toss, I mean, everything's got to be near perfect, both sides, and we've seen that from both of these teams. Almost near perfect when you look at that toss, that flip, landing almost simultaneously. Everything's got to be just in sync and well done by both the Bulldogs and the Tigers.
Yeah, that comes back to the preparation that these teams have been putting in this whole season leading up to this point. You've had time to tweak it and to break it down to what you need it to be, and here it is, you're competing it, and it looks great. That has to be a very relieving feeling to have on both sides of the mat here.
For both of these teams coming in, and when you look at number of meets for East Texas Baptist, this being the 9th time they have gone out there and competed. In the case of Texas Lutheran, they have one victory so far this season with a total of 6 defeats. So they too find themselves out there, this being the now 8th time they have competed in a meet this season. Fun to watch the scores, too, because we mentioned it. You go back to February and you look at scores then versus now, and essentially across the board, everybody's improved. They've gotten more comfortable, and the confidence has grown.
And that is a strategy that coaches will implement. Starting off the season, maybe with those lower start values, something that you know you can achieve, but you're going to score a little less, but you're going to put out a great product. But then as you can master those skills, you move up and you level up a little bit. You make those upgrades as you go on. So that is definitely a strategy that's coming from the coaches, and having a team that can step up to those upgrades and continue to improve throughout the season is great to have.
Here's the open toss in heat number 3, a 9.40 start value for Texas Lutheran. Chance to get a little creative, and Gracie Bunch. So up top there for Texas Lutheran. One thing that stood out about the Bulldogs to me has been the consistency, and it just seems like across the board, no matter what the event has been, no matter what the heat has been, they've been pretty consistent.
I agree. They are putting out a great product. They have that all-around cleanliness that is so important in this sport. Whatever you do, you need to do it well. You need to make it look like you're doing everything that you have practiced, and that it is intentional with your movement. So they have done a great job being overall very clean when they take the mat.
Coming off a performance against Mary Hardin Baylor, in which they had a great toss event at 26.10, a program best. We're going to build off that, and we'll see what happens later on with the team event too, because that's a score that's been improving throughout the course of the first 2 years for the Bulldogs as well. For East Texas Baptist, 9.25 will be their start value for this open toss heat number 3.
Next with a start value of 9.25, East Texas Baptist.
And that happens now. I feel like so much of that scoring comes into the catch, too, after the toss. And nice job there by the Tigers.
Yeah, definitely the bases did a really great job extending all the way through their arms and through their wrists on that throw, giving their top enough time to spin and letting her do it well.
Maddie Lozano out there for East Texas Baptist. Comes with a gymnastics background in high school, 7-time state champion, a senior from Denton, Texas. So the toss event completed. As we move on to tumbling, And we will see a duo pass, trio pass, quad pass, aerial pass, 6-element pass, open pass, all throughout the course of this tumbling event. Texas Lutheran will come out with a tumbling total start value of 51.95 with a possibility of 60. East Texas Baptist at 47.45 with a possibility of 60, so a chance here of your Texas Lutheran to grow the lead. And when you just look at start values alone, they've had a great deal of success. When it comes to tumbling, we'll see if that trend continues. As we await the toss scores to see if the lead has grown or diminished a little bit for Texas Lutheran. The rubber matchup between these two, if you will, after these two programs split during the course of the regular season. Again, Texas Lutheran, after going 0-6 last year, lost their first 4 meets of this season before they got that first program victory. One I'm sure they will not soon forget. Back on the 16th of March when they put up 240.570 for a team score. But their season best coming last time out at 241.600 at Mary Hardin Baylor. Seguin, Texas, the home for Texas Lutheran University. And again, the first time they're competing as a team here at the D3 NCATA tournament. So in the toss event, for Texas Lutheran, 8.33 in heat number 1.
East Texas Baptist, 7.400. In the open
Waiting for
heat,
some of the other scores to come in.
Texas Lutheran, 8.900. East Texas Baptist, 8.5.
Heat number 2 was 8.575.
Event total, 25.
And then 8.900 in heat number 3. So Texas Lutheran with a total of 25.800
Heat total, Texas Lutheran,
out of a possible 27.80. For East Texas Baptist, heat number 1, 8.600. Heat number 2, 7.400. And then heat number 3, 8.575 for a total of 24.575. That is 3.23 off their start value.
Up first with a start value of 9.10.
Nearly
Texas Lutheran.
10-point lead now for Texas Lutheran. Through the event, scored 112.425. East Texas Baptist, 102.900. The updated team scores to start this second half. The duo pass for Tumbling. A 9.10 start value for Texas Lutheran. And we saw the combination there of Phoenix Causley and Grayson Bunch. Again, this is where they competed in the event finals last year at Mary Hardin Baylor at the NCATA D3 tournament. East Texas Baptist will come out with a start value of 8.50. You've talked about it too when you look at scores or lack thereof. Obviously, they matter when you look at the whole meet itself, but you got to focus on just going out there and competing. And it's funny how in a meet like this, things can quickly, even if you're down by 6, 7 points, things can quickly turn around, and it comes down to that team event, and that team event can really sway a meet.
Yeah, Coach used to always say you want it to come down to team event. You want to have a meet that's going to keep you on your toes, and team event is where you need to make up or keep your lead. So it gets really exciting there, but team event is where there's so many points to gain or even to lose. So that's why the scores really don't matter. They can ebb and flow and incredibly by the time you get to team event at the end.
Well, here's the duo pass for East Texas Baptist.
Number 19, Macy Goff. Number 1, Maddie Lozano.
So Maddie Lozano along with Macy Goff. Comes with a cheerleading background, the sophomore from Arkansas. Well done by those two.
Great timing there.
Lozano listed as a senior, Goff listed as a sophomore. Move on to the trio pass. And Texas Lutheran with a start value 8.50. Will come out with Mackenzie Holland. You have Genna Crafts along with Nadia Roberts. Young trio with a sophomore, a couple of freshmen. Of the events, which was your favorite back when you competed?
Of tumbling or of all of them?
Just overall.
Ooh. I always really enjoyed the acro event. I love the connection you would create with your top. I think there were so many possibilities of cool new things that you could try. I really think that's going to be a lot of people's favorites as well. But that was always something that I held close to my heart.
And we'll get to it as we go along, but I want to talk about the team event too, because I know so much that goes into that. And
oh, yes.
there's a theme usually with each team event, so
Number 7, Nadia Roberts.
whole another animal. Obviously, landing, trying to be in sync comes into play, but how about spacing? Does that factor at all?
So spacing, like how far the athletes are from each other, does not affect the score that you are going to achieve. I know people who like to tumble further from each other, so they have comfortability of knowing they're not going to run into each other. But I know people who like to tumble nice and close for that timing factor. Here we saw perfectly in sync. I think the judges will have a hard time taking away any points in that respect. I also wanted to touch on that typically steps are something we take away from on a landing. You want to stick it as often as you can, but in twisting skills, like a back full we just saw, or in the 1.5s we started with, you are allowed to take one controlled step. So as you saw, everyone put that 1 foot back and brought it back in at the same time. That is not something they are deducted for.
Okay. So if I were to stumble maybe a step or two, that second step cost me.
Yeah, that second step is where they're going to get you.
Move on to the trio pass here for East Texas Baptist. We'll come out with Emma Levy, Macy Goff, Jessica Coleman, sophomore, senior, sophomore. An experience factor at least coming in with East Texas Baptist. Right now, the Bulldogs had a great deal of success in the first 4 events scored. A little bit of a break here after, and some of the teams already in the stands taking in the action, just getting used to the surrounding the environment here inside the John Book Fieldhouse. But coming up at 2 o'clock Central Time, we will see trying against Buffalo State. So stay tuned for that coming up at 2 o'clock back here via the Falcon Athletic Network.
Number 19, Macy Goff, and number 5, Jessica Coleman.
So you got me watching those feet now, so they get the 1 step and not the second step.
Correct.
That starts to cost them in the deduction of scoring, but
if it's a twisting skill, if they are throwing just layouts or just a tuck, you've got to stick it. You've got one chance. So for layouts, you are intended to stick it. You don't get that extra step, so you see how they did not all take a step in sync. If you want to be intentional about it and get just 1 step rather than a possible 2 or even 3 if you're kind of bobbling at the end, that could be a strategy that your coach implements there. But most of the time you will see a step taken on twisting skills, but a hopeful stick on non-twisting skills.
We'll move on to the quad pass now here in the tumbling event. 7.50 start value for Texas Lutheran. We'll see Michaela Torres. Cheerleading background for the freshman from Texas. You have Nadia Roberts, a freshman from Texas. Also out there is going to be Claire Couples, who comes with a cheerleading background, but also two-time Level 3 Acrobatics and Tumbling national champion, a two-time Level 10 Team Gym national champion as well during her time at the prep level in Katy, Texas. And again, Jenna Crafts, a freshman, will be out there sporting jersey number 8, a freshman who comes with a golf, track and field, a trampoline and tumbling and volleyball background.
Isn't that fun?
Love the variety of sports there.
The final heat of synchronized passes will be the quad pass. Up first with a start value of 7.50, Texas Lutheran. Number 9, Michaela Torres. Number 7, Nadia Roberts. Number 17, Claire Couples. And number 8, Jenna Crafts.
Yeah, sticking that landing. And it seemed like they were all pretty much in sync.
I think overall that's going to be one that the judges have a hard time picking apart.
As Texas Lutheran again came in with a start value of 7.50. Speaking about backgrounds, you had a pretty unique background outside of just, the typical, whether it be cheerleading, dance, gymnastics, what, taekwondo, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, I did MMA and I wrestled for a little bit.
Did you find that obviously certain, bones you use and athleticism, but did you find that those sports helped you in acrobatics and tumbling?
I think it definitely helped with my bodily control and being able to know where your body is, what it's going to do. Like that coordination is something that you will pick up throughout different sports in your life, but definitely knowing the ins and outs of what you're going to do and having complete control over what you're doing is something that I definitely came away with from those two sports.
I'm guessing not a ton will have that MMA or wrestling background like you did, but good for you.
Thank you.
And you look at what we have up next with the quad pass here for East Texas Baptist. They will have a start value of 7. We will see Jordan Reeves, Jaden Stroman, Zoe Connor, Ellie Davis, all seniors, at least when you look academically. They'll be competing here for the Tigers.
Next with a start value of 7.00, East Texas Baptist. Number 23, Jordan Reeves. Number 14, Jaden Stroman. Number 2, Zoe Connor. And number 10, Ellie Davis.
We still have the aerial pass, 6-element pass, open pass to come here in the tumbling event. Your thoughts?
I love the energy coming from the team on the sidelines here. You can tell how big that is for them, the celebration and everything. Seeing some of the characters come to life on the sideline, especially as you have the majority of the team, for a change now, cheering on the few people that are tumbling. Seeing that role switch and having that good support on the side is something that I love being able to see in this sport.
It looks like somebody brought a beach ball as well.
Whatever gets the nerves out, honestly.
That for the East Texas Baptist Tigers. Aerial pass is next. And Texas Lutheran will have a start value of 8.85 out of a possible 10. And for the aerial pass, we'll see Mackenzie Holland out there, the sophomore. We've talked about her in length, making the switch from Stevenson to Texas Lutheran. Speaking of Stevenson, we'll see them later on compete against Concordia, Wisconsin. That quarterfinal will get underway at approximately 6 p.m. Boy, if you like acrobatics and tumbling, this is the place to be over the next 3 days. Lots of activity and action taking place here in Mequon, Wisconsin. And again, it will culminate. You have the final on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, but then you have the event finals coming up at 7 p.m. on Saturday, and that's kind of a free-for-all.
Yeah, it really is a way for each team to show the skills that they are best at. You're seeing the top 3 teams compete each individual element that they are most proud of and scored highest. So it's great to see.
Again, we'll see all 8 Division III schools represented in some way during the course of the event finals. Well done, Mackenzie Holland.
Great height there on that Arabian through the full. Nice controlled step. Getting a big hug from Coach. Well deserved.
And a high five there from Coach Cam Bryant. Aerial pass for East Texas Baptist. A start value at 9.50. Macy Goff. Tell you she's got that cheerleading background. They list her on the competition roster as a senior. They have her on the roster as a sophomore. But Macy Goff will be out there in a moment. If you go by the team roster, take away the competition roster, it's a big sophomore class of 9 and a roster of 20. And coming up in the team event, we'll see 19 involved on both sides involved in the team event that's coming up in just a little bit. But right now, Texas Lutheran in the driver's seat. They have been playing with the lead from the get-go after a good showing during the compulsory event. You see that lead has blossomed nearly 10 points over a team that I'm going to venture to guess has become somewhat of a rival. They've seen each other enough over the first couple of years of the Bulldogs program's history in East Texas Baptist.
Next with a start value of 9.50, East Texas Baptist, number 19, Macy Goff.
And landing everything to at the end, but kept it going.
Yeah, she did a really nice job keeping her energy up and keeping that continuity through the skills. So not stopping after each individual thing. It flowed really nicely. You could tell that this is something that she has mastered and the strength to be able to do so. A lot of hard work most likely put into that pass, and well done today.
And got the run down the high five line, and at the end, got to catch the beach ball. The beach ball thrown in a direction from Brianna Brown. There's got to be a story behind the beach ball. But like you said, whatever keeps the team loose but also engaged.
Mm-hmm.
All about having fun, too, because as we mentioned, regardless of what happens at the end of the day, this is a trip for both of these teams. Memories will last forever, and a sport that, as you've talked about, continues to grow, and just another step in that progression for Division III acrobatics and tumbling.
Yeah, one thing I especially love about this sport is you get to see a glimpse of everyone's personalities. You don't always get to see that behind a helmet or when you're so far away from a field or a court. Here you get to see that each one of these girls has great character that they're bringing. You also get to see how these teams will interact with each other. And from my experience, I always had very pleasant interactions with people on opposing teams, which is not something you always get in a head-to-head match.
A lot of positivity around this sport. That's one thing that I'm drawn to, too, is the positivity. And both sides. And you want to see, yes, you want to win, but you want to see both sides succeed. You're cheering for one another. Here's the 6-element pass. Grayson Bunch came with a start value 8.90.
A front handspring front on dead mat is one of those skills that is extremely difficult. Front tumbling in general takes a different kind of technique, the way you propel yourself off the ground, the way you punch the mat is different than if you were to be going into a backward skill. So being able to connect two front skills and then ending it beautifully with that full, that is something I commend her for, and I think that was done beautifully.
East Texas Baptist will counter with a start value of 7.45. And we'll see Maddie Lozano. And then we will finish things off with the open pass for the tumbling event, in which Texas Lutheran will have Phoenix Causley compete with Emma Levy. That for East Texas Baptist.
As we wait, Matt, I have a question for you.
Oh, boy.
If you were to compete one of these events, which one would you want to compete in?
First of all, afraid of heights, so I can't be a top, but I can't be a base either because I drop somebody.
Okay.
Would probably.
Value of 7.45. East Texas
I feel like
Number 1,
maybe I can handle acro. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. It's a big maybe.
I think you'd do well.
I appreciate that. No, you got to respect the athleticism we're seeing on display because there's a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, tears, a lot of hours spent perfecting what these athletes are doing out there on the mat here today and throughout this weekend. And fine job there by Maddie Lozano.
Mm-hmm. Stuck the landing like we were talking about before. A non-twisting skill coming right down and having almost glue on the bottom of your shoes to just stick it. Beautifully done. I love the celebration. The personality is great.
And we're starting to see, as this quarterfinal has progressed, more of that personality, especially on the East Texas Baptist side, come out. We've seen that loosey-goosey look for the Bulldogs. Now starting to see the Tigers. Looks like they're having a little more fun than maybe when this first started, as they were trying to weather maybe perhaps the butterfly to the nerves.
Yeah, coming into a pretty new environment, and like we mentioned, the first half can be so slow. Coming into the second half is where it starts to pick up. You have almost more things to on your to-do list on the side as you're preparing for a team event with everything you need to bring back from the back of your mind. So definitely second half is where you'll either see teams capitalize on that quickness and will pick up the energy, or sometimes you'll see it become a weakness. But here, I think they are doing a great job turning it around and really ramping it up as they go.
There's a chance once again to get creative with the open pass here in the tumbling event. We will see a start value 9.10 for Texas Lutheran and Phoenix Causley out of Round Rock, Texas.
Yeah, the only pass without a requirement that they need to fulfill. So this is truly where this each team will get to present something that might not fit into a different category. So you're going to see some really cool things go on here.
The final heat of tumbling will be the open pass. Up first with a start value of 9.10, Texas Lutheran, number 3, Phoenix Causley.
A very clean 1.5 there. A strong way to end your tumbling event, having someone as strong of a tumbler as that to come through and hit a clean skill and do it well. I think that's a great strategy from their coach.
That's for Phoenix Causley, the sophomore base tumbler. East Texas Baptist with a start value of 7.50. And they will come out with Emma Levy out of Austin, Texas, the sophomore. Before we sway our attention to the team event, looking forward to that conversation because, like I said, there's so much that goes into the grand finale, if you will, to wrap up this quarterfinal. Again, the winner moves on. We'll compete at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning in our first semifinal against Mary Hardin Baylor. The loser will be involved in the tri-meet that will take place tomorrow night at 6 o'clock against the other couple of teams that fall today in quarterfinal competition. And then the teams will stick around for the team final, and some of these athletes will be involved in the event finals coming up on Saturday night.
Next, with a start value of 7.50, East Texas Baptist, number 4, Emma Levy.
So Emma Levy, who looks like she's even competing somewhat hurt or maybe a little banged up. Saw the left leg taped up or
yeah, even with that, I think great power coming from her tumbling. Into that set was really nice, straight arms. She had straight legs throughout. You can definitely tell that she has great technical tumbling here.
There's that brace in that left leg, but able to power through. Let's talk team event now. Okay, so at least for the Falcons, how was the team event, scripted or built? I know you pick up the music. You got a theme. How does that all transpire?
Ooh, how does all of that come together? Good question. There's so many moving parts, so I feel like each year it's kind of a bit different, but you want to take skills that you know you can hit, and so that's kind of a great starting point. You kind of know who your tumblers are, you know what skills they can hit, and that's a great starting point. And then from there, you want to fulfill the score sheet requirements for how many sync skills you need or how many passes you need versus how many acro skills and pyramids. So coach takes all that into her hands, and she works it through and creates a layout for us that she will place us in, and we'll practice it and drill it. And then it's kind of up to the seniors for what kind of music do you want? Do you want a theme? I know for my senior year we had the awesome idea to do a Western theme, and we were joking around about it before we were seniors, and then all of a sudden people realized we weren't joking.
It came to life.
Said, we're going to do it. So, though through the groans and the not wanting to, people had a great deal of fun with it. It was definitely one of those things that showed our personality and of finding little ways to make our team smile through what we're doing.
And it's wild how it all comes together. In this case, you have 19 athletes out there, and everybody has a part. And you all got to do your part to make it successful.
Yeah, and on top of that, you want to try not to run into other people.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness, there's so much going on. And you'll definitely, and behind the scenes at practice, when you're first learning things, we do run into each other sometimes. But it all works out beautifully, and that just is another reason why this event is so great to watch. You get to see kind of everyone's skills come together. You're finally working with everyone, where typically you're only working with one or two or maybe three other people. But here you are with your team. The energy's on the floor. You're putting energy into other people. It's great to be out there with your friends, your family. It's just an awesome feeling.
That with a 2.5 minute routine, give or take, about close to 2.5 minutes, as we hear the tumbling event scores come in.
8.125.
We'll get those to you in a second.
In the trio heat, Texas Lutheran 7.8.
So again, Texas Lutheran,
East Texas Baptist,
who came into the event with a 10-point advantage.
Quad pass, Texas Lutheran 4.750.
In the duo pass, 8.325 for Texas Lutheran. 8.575 for the trio pass, 8.900 for the quad pass.
In the sixth element, Texas Lutheran 8.67.
There's more of those to come in.
East Texas Baptist 6.9.
They've adjusted the scores, so apparently 8.625 for the duo pass,
East Texas Baptist
7.850 for the trio pass.
Event total, Texas Lutheran 47.
The quad pass got a 4.750 to possible 7.50.
Meet total, Texas Lutheran.
Still waiting for the rest of the scores to come in. 8.550 for the aerial pass, that for Texas Lutheran. As for the 6 element pass, 8.675. 8.900 for the open pass, a total of 47.350. 4.60 off their start value. For East Texas Baptist, 8.125 for the duo pass. 5.625 for the trio pass.
Correction for East Texas Baptist.
Awaiting the quad pass score to come in. Still waiting for that total.
Now for the final event. With a
5.475 for East Texas Baptist.
The Texas Lutheran Bulldogs.
9.125 in the aerial pass. $6.975 for the 6 element pass, and then in the open pass, the Tigers at 6.925 for a total of 42.250, 5.20 off their start value to watch the Texas Lutheran Bulldogs in their team events. How about that with about 3 seconds to spare? Texas Lutheran, their team event, to wrap up their portion of the quarterfinal.
Excellent energy going throughout there, I think. Definitely even pulling in from the crowd, heard some parents start to chant at the beginning. That is just great to see, and having that feeling of relief now that it's over and you just went out there and you killed it. Coach was going crazy on the side. Stability looked great throughout, a clean routine. I think they have a lot to be proud of after today's entire performance, but also even ending with a team event like that.
They had a start value at 95.80. Great job there by Texas Lutheran. Looking for their second ever meet victory, but East Texas Baptist One final opportunity here to gain some ground. You look at the overall team score coming into this one and lead up to over 14 points down for Texas Lutheran, 159.775 to East Texas Baptist, 145.150. The Tigers will have a team event start value of 98.30. And again, just someone call it organized chaos. But with 19, they'll be out there competing for East Texas Baptist. It's impressive. There's a lot going on.
There sure is. And being able to master each skill and doing it back-to-back, sandwiched with other things that you have going on in your brain, you really need to slow it down and chunk it out because you need to focus on the here and now. You can't be thinking about what you're doing down the road or what you even did before. It's all about the present moment, and that's a lot of times where people can get tripped up. But I think they did a great job here staying focused on each skill, especially in their inversions and their regrabs. They had 6 of those going, and I saw on the sidelines that was something that they were working with a little bit leading up to this team event. So to see them come out here and hit it with great timing and great stability, it makes my heart happy to see.
Well, we mentioned, too, obviously you're competing against another team, but both teams are, encouraging one another. I love the positivity there, and you see it in the team event especially, that you mentioned it too, the energy level in this place. I mean, it's everybody's on their feet, clapping, cheering, no matter what affiliation you have with what school. It's just a fun culmination of a long day for these athletes.
Yeah, and a long day indeed, going all the way from, hours ago, starting with Compulse Acro and getting all the way to here. It's a great feeling to know that the finish line is only 2 minutes and 30 seconds away.
That it is. And again, 3 seconds there to spare. As Texas Lutheran again watching the replay of that team event. And again, I can't imagine being one of those athletes there and you got one piece of the puzzle, but then when you watch it all put together on film, my goodness, how it all comes together, all the pieces of the puzzle tend to fit. And we'll see what East Texas Baptist has for a team event coming up here. Last time they were out and competing against both Talladega along with St. Leo in that tri-meet. The Tigers were able to, out of 98.30 for a start value, 68.14. So looking to bounce back from that showing back on the 5th of April. Even from a judging standpoint, too, there's so much you have to dissect. So we talk about all that quiet time in between. There's a lot of downtime in between team events. They, again, dissect every aspect of that team event.
Yeah, it's interesting how the judges actually will break it up. One judge will take the far 3 mats, one judge will take the center 3, and then the other one will take the left 3. So you'll see some strategy come to play here, where if a coach will put a lot of elements in the far right 3 panels, that's because they know one judge is going to be looking at it. And they might not be able to catch all the deductions that the other judges would be able to. So definitely a lot of strategy comes into play here, but so many moving parts. It's just awesome to see it come together.
Here's the team event for East Texas Baptist. The East Texas Baptist University Tigers, their team event with a second to spare.
Incredible. We go back to talking about the sportsmanship that can be seen here, and even through technical difficulties, having another team step up and say, I got your back, I'll count for you, so you can focus on what you're doing. That is incredible to see. So I applaud both teams for, one, pushing through, having your music cutting off and not getting startled by that, and the other team for picking it up and having their back.
Again, it goes back to stuff we've stressed throughout. You can control what you can control. You can't control technical difficulties, as you mentioned, and 1, 3, 5, 7. That's something we're all going to be probably repeating in our heads throughout the course of this day after that team event. But, again, point taken where all of a sudden you have Texas Lutheran doing what they can to, again, help, encourage, and keep East Texas Baptist going with that team event. And they kept on going and ended the quarterfinal strong.
Yes. No, that is exactly how, like, from a coaching perspective, you want your girls to go out there and do everything they can. And this is definitely a situation where they went out there and they did everything that they can to put out their best routine.
So the judges will tabulate the team event totals, and we'll get you the final score in a minute. Your thoughts on what we saw here in this quarterfinal overall?
I am blown away by the growth of both of these teams. From the beginning, starting off a little slow to the end now here with the energy being high. The skills are, big, and, with the energy even bigger. Like, it is just incredible to see how they have ramped up to come to a head here to finish it off. So I'm excited to see what the scores look like after two great team events and to see who will come out a victor here.
And I think we're just getting started. That's the best part here with this first quarter final. And we still have trying against Buffalo State coming up at 2 o'clock Central Time. It's later on after that at 6 o'clock. It's going to be a matchup between Stevenson and Concordia, Wisconsin. I think the other challenge is going to come with these teams, the fact that you're competing now for potentially 3 straight days, which is not something they're potentially used to, not at this level. And so fatigue will maybe come into play a little bit too, but certainly a great start and a great foundation to be laid by these two programs.
Yeah, it definitely is something that's going to emphasize recovery and rest and using your time wisely. What are you doing in your downtime that's going to prepare you for 3 days of competing? It is unnatural. It is something that is new, especially in this sport, but it's all about how you take the punches you're thrown.
And we'll see what, again, comes from this team event score. Both teams will be in action regardless tomorrow. And, again, the winner will compete against Mary Hardin Baylor, defending Division III champions at 10 o'clock in the morning. And the team that falls will be part of the tri-meet at 6 o'clock tomorrow, which also can be a little bit different. Timing will be a little bit different with 2 other schools you're competing with. So, again, we wait to see if Texas Lutheran has, in fact, picked up the second win in the program's history. Both would be against East Texas Baptist after they knocked off the Tigers. That came back on the 16th of March. And, of course, we invite you to check out CUWFalcons.com. There's a link for the NCATA Division III tournament with not only the video coverage but also live stats, and keep you posted with the updates throughout this event, the schedule for the next few days. So again, the calculators are out as they tabulate the scores. Like you said, getting input from a couple of different sides, depending on what side of the mat you had covered, who saw what. We mentioned the music cut out there on East Texas Baptist, but to their credit, they kept on going, and that's probably going to cost them a little bit with the, I would think, maybe come into play a little bit, or where they say, hey, that's not your fault. We won't punish you.
Yeah, technical difficulties are outside of the athlete's hands.
Okay.
So they are not judged for that. As long as they didn't let it show and they continue to do what they do best and put on a performance and hit their skills, the judges will not take away any points for technical difficulties.
And you said it best. Watching at least the Tigers out there, they didn't seem rattled. They just kept on. And I was watching to see because I was thinking maybe at first, was this part of the routine? Nobody was really, scurrying around trying to figure out what's going on. Why is the music not playing? It just was more casual, business as usual. Hey, this happens. Let's keep going.
Mm-hmm. And truthfully, it does happen. I mean, through whatever background that each of these athletes have, it's something you got to know what to do when it happens.
Looking at the team event scores, 78.94 for Texas Lutheran out of 95.80. At for East Texas Baptist, a team event score of 77.84 out of 98.30. So that will bring the final Texas Lutheran with 238.715 to East Texas Baptist at 222.990. So Texas Lutheran is moving on to a semifinal against Mary Hardin Baylor, which will take place at 10 o'clock tomorrow. A team that the Bulldogs have faced a couple of times this season, lost by over 57 points to on February the 24th, and more recently lost by over 30 on March the 30th, but put up some program record-setting scores. So the Bulldogs and Mary Hardin Baylor at 10 o'clock tomorrow at Fort East Texas Baptist will be part of the tri-meet that will take place at 6 o'clock tomorrow. So a good win here for the Bulldogs. Jesse, it was a pleasure. We'll do it again in a couple of days.
Thank you. It was great being here.
Great talking with Jesse Alexander. Thank you for joining us for this quarterfinal. Stay tuned. Back at it just before 2 o'clock Central Time, a matchup that will feature Buffalo State and Trine. Again, Texas Lutheran victorious over East Texas Baptist, 238.715 to 222.990. You're watching continuing coverage of the 2024 NCATA Division III Acrobatics and Tumbling Tournament on the Falcon Athletic Network.